Howdy. Today we'll look at the Kennedy years. John F. Kennedy was Irish from Boston. His dad, Joe Kennedy, was a millionaire. There's a lot of people there's hints that he might have been involved in bootlegging in the 20s. But he definitely made a lot of money on the stock market. Irish Catholic from Boston, had a big family. John F. Kennedy was not originally the anointed one. Joe's son, Joe Jr., was I think, had that role. But during World War II, Joe Jr. Is killed in a really dangerous flying mission, which leaves John F. Kennedy. Now, John F. Kennedy, being from Boston, he'd gone to Harvard and all that stuff, and he'd been on yachts, joined the Navy. During World War II, he became a PT boat commander in the Pacific. Now, PT boat, it's a small speedboat with a lot of guns, basically. It's made out of wood, and its only protection is it goes really fast. Took a lot of daring and courage to be a captain or a crew member on one of those, and especially Kennedy's, because his boat at PT-109 got rammed and cut in half by a Japanese destroyer during the war. Kennedy became a hero because he organized his men. He didn't lose his cool. He got them to an island, helped the wounded people swim there, and then once his men were on an island, he swam to another island, found a place where there was food and water for his people, swam, got his guys there, and then he went off for help. Later on, he would there'd be a book, PT-109, about this, and Kennedy would be a war hero, and rightly so. Though it would have an effect on him. Later on as president, his back was messed up for the rest of his life. He had a special chair in the White House and stuff because he always was in pain. When he was a senator, he actually went in the hospital for that, and they had operations on him and stuff. But John F. Kennedy was a war hero. After World War II, he gets elected to the Senate from Massachusetts. He's a millionaire's son. He's a very eligible bachelor, and he catches a lot of people's eye. But the one that catches his and eventually marries him is Jacqueline Bouvier. Later on, that they would have a couple kids. She had a hard time having kids, so she also had some miscarriages. But they had 2 young kids while in the White House, John and Caroline. And one of the times when John F. Kennedy was in the hospital, he wrote a book, Profiles in Courage. It's a great book. I used to have to read it in high school. It's about politicians and doing the right thing, no matter what, courageously doing so. But this sets John F. Kennedy up. He's a young politician on the go. He represents a new generation, this generation of World War II vets coming out wanting to make a difference in the world. 1956, he makes an attempt at getting the vice presidency of the Democratic candidate campaign, but doesn't get it, but it sets him up for 1960. In 1960, he runs and wins for the nomination for the Democratic Party for president. He's going to run against Richard Nixon. Rich Nixon was Eisenhower's vice president. They were both World War II vets and relatively the same age. The real big difference between the two is, if you look at the picture here, you see this is television in the 1950s is huge, and this is one of the first presidential elections where we have a televised debate, which allows people to not only hear the candidates, but to see them in the same room and compare them. Kennedy showed up young, debonair, calm, and everything, and the people who watched TV, a lot of them thought that Kennedy had a better image projected, an image of calm, and Nixon was really nervous looking. He had bad makeup, and under the Klieg lights, he was sweating. He didn't look good. So a lot of people who watched the TV thought Kennedy did better. A lot of the people who actually listened to the radio and listened to their answers thought Nixon did better. But this sets Kennedy up to be in a place to catch the presidency. But he's got to do a couple things. He's a rich guy from up north. What about the Southern Democratic Party? So he picks Lyndon Johnson, who was a senator from Texas, who would also run for the Democratic nomination as his running mate. He doesn't really like LBJ ever, but he needs his votes. And later on in the election, Texas is going to be one of the states that goes for JFK, and that makes a huge difference. Of course, John F. Kennedy may not trust or be close to LBJ, but his brother Bobby was the guy that John F. Kennedy always trusted and went to. So Bobby, he made Attorney General of the United States. During the election, Kennedy had some problems. One of the biggest things was Kennedy is a Catholic, and America has never elected a Catholic to the presidency. Al Smith ran in the 20s, and that was one of the things that he lost for. So Kennedy gives a major speech in Houston about how he believes in religious freedom, he's proud of his religion, but that he's not going to do just what the Pope says. And he addresses the issue. But during the election, it's going to stick there, and it's going to haunt him. Now, John F. Kennedy's brother-in-law is a guy named Peter Lawford, who was a movie star. And through him, John F. Kennedy is going to meet Frank Sinatra, movie star, singer, and very famous person. Now, there are people out there that say that Sinatra might have been friends with the mafia, especially if you look at the picture here, Sam Giancana, the guy with the sunglasses. He ran Chicago mob. At one time had been like a chauffeur and bodyguard for Al Capone. So some people think that it's possible that during the election, because he wins Chicago through Daley, but there's always been rumors that, or possibility that maybe John F. Kennedy's dad, Joe Kennedy, might have reached out to Giancana to get some help from the mob to get the election. We'll never know. I mean, everybody can say anything. But when he's elected, John F. Kennedy, he's this young, dynamic guy. His inaugural speech blows the country away. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. But more importantly, the torch has been passed to a new generation. He calls it the new frontier, and he symbolizes this new thing. Think about it. 2020, everybody running for president, Republican, Democrat, Biden, Sanders, and Trump, they're all in their 70s. They're old. Kennedy is a young kid. He replaces Eisenhower, old. Truman, old. FDR, old. So it's this new thing, new emphasis. And he talks about new dreams like going to the moon by the end of the decade, starting the Peace Corps so we can make a difference in the world. Now, as soon as Kennedy becomes president, though, he's got his first problem, Cuba. Right next to Florida is Cuba. Fidel Castro was a rebel, and he fought against a dictator by the name of Batista, who was not a nice guy. Batista took bribes. The mob built casinos in Havana. Well, Castro overthrows Batista. He gets a lot of help from the Russians, and so he starts looking real communist. So America's not thrilled with him. One of the first things Kennedy gets when he's president is, what do we do about Castro? And the Eisenhower CIA had actually come up with some plans to get rid of Castro, and one of them was the Bay of Pigs. That's where we took people that left Cuba because they didn't want to be under Castro, and the CIA takes them and trains them into an army, and the CIA says to Kennedy basically, hey, it's a slam dunk. You land these people, the people kick out Castro, you win. Well, it doesn't go like that. We land them at the place called the Bay of Pigs. Great name, eh, kids? And the people do not rise up to meet him. Instead, Castro brings the Cuban army up to fight him, and now these rebels on the Bay of Pigs are trapped. I kind of think the CIA wanted this situation in a way because that would force Kennedy to go ahead and back them up with both the U.S. Navy and the Air Force and thing. But Kennedy doesn't want to get pulled into a direct invasion of Cuba, and he pulls the Navy. All right, the rebels are captured. The U.S. looks bad. There's a lot of distrust between both the CIA and Kennedy. Quickly, you know what the CIA is, the company. You guys watch all the spy movies. But they're what Kennedy has. And so he's going to do something called, look into something called Operation Mongoose and Northwind. And, oh my God, you got to look up Operation Mongoose. These are plans that we came up to eliminate Castro. Exploding cigars, give me a break. Exploding seashells, poison wetsuit because Castro is a diver. I mean, we're going to drop 10,000 one-way airplane tickets all out of Cuba, and those people that don't get them are going to go crazy. Oh my God, some of these Operation Mongoose things are just crazy. Which of them were just ideas and which were planned, we don't know. There probably were attempts to actually assassinate him. And then Operation Northwind was really controversial and top secret for the longest time, where we were going to blow up an airplane in the U.S. and then blame Castro. All right, Kennedy, this young president, untried, and this Bay of Pig makes him look bad. So the Russian leader Khrushchev decides to start pushing. One of the places he pushes is in Berlin, where they build a wall. And there's not much we can do about it. We're not going to go to war over Berlin, but we don't like it. You want to see a good movie about this? Look at Tom Hanks's Bridge of Spies, okay? And here's the big deal. It's a nuclear confrontation with Russia. We just don't want to get in a war with them because when we shoot missiles, they shoot missiles, everybody dies. It's called mutual destruction. But then this concept comes out. What if you could shoot your missiles first, blow up enough of the enemy's missiles they can't shoot them back at you? You could maybe survive a little bit. You could possibly win a war. This is called a first strike. And this leads us to what we're going to be called the Cuban Missile Crisis, which we're going to look at tomorrow. Love this picture. Does Khrushchev not look like he's stealing cigars from Castro or pickpocketing him or something like that? I don't know. Maybe it's just tickling. I don't know. A couple of rebels just having friends. Fun. Anyhow, Castro, because of all these assassination attempts in the Bay of Pigs, is going to start looking at Khrushchev and Russia. And Khrushchev and Russia, looking this a perfect place, are going to drop some missiles right next to America, which would give them a first strike capability. After all, we had missiles in Turkey right next to Russia. They're going to put them here. But a U-2 spy plane is going to discover them, and that's going to set it up. All right, we'll stop here. Tomorrow, we're going to take a look at the Cuban Missile Crises, and we're going to take a look at what actually Kennedy has got to choose from as a choice as President of the United States.